Jason, personal trainer and online coach, owner of Unparalleled Fitness. So today we're going to tackle the second part of fat loss for beginners, but this time we're going to be focusing on emotional eating. Now the clip at the start of the video of me eating a chocolate bar in response to a stressful day at work is probably what most people think about when we talk about emotional eating. But in actuality, this term covers a lot more than that. Emotional eating is when a person eats for reasons other than hunger. This could be stress, trauma, or even boredom. Now, emotional eating actually starts from a very young age. If you think back to your childhood, when you went to the dentist or you were feeling poorly, mum or dad would give you a treat or a pick-me-up to make you feel better. Now, unconsciously, we take this behavior into adulthood, and it manifests in various ways. It's been a tough week at work. I could really do with a bottle of wine. It's cold and wet outside. I need some comfort food. Or generally eating and drinking in response to any situation in which you're out of control. Think of lockdown and coronavirus. So you can see why someone focusing on eat less, move more, if they haven't dealt with these issues at the background, will struggle to make progress on their fat loss journey. And also how a personal trainer, nutritionist, or coach, if they don't actually understand what emotional eating is, will struggle to get the best out of their clients. Because of a lack of awareness, a lot of people can't identify when emotional eating is happening. So it's affecting their fat loss journeys without them even knowing. I'm going to go through how to identify emotional eating and, more importantly, how to deal with it to make progress towards your goals. So I've dealt with emotional eating both in a professional capacity with clients and also on a personal level. In primary school, I was chubby. Now I was bigger than other kids, but I wasn't massively overweight. It hit its peak in year 7 to 9 when I really began to pile on the weight, and this is when I was emotional eating. Now around year 9, so I must have been 13, 14, I started to get into fitness after meeting my uncle who was in incredible shape. So that's when I started to take a real interest in nutrition and ask questions like, what am I eating, how much of it, and why? And I started to notice that some of the times I was binge eating was immediately after a main meal. So this couldn't be a question of hunger. When I made the link between stressful events and a poor choice of food, I realized I was emotional eating and began to rectify it. And I've never looked back since. Now please hear me, there is nothing wrong with any of these foods or drinks, but people tend to use them in response to traumatic events. If you genuinely want a food, go on, have what you want and enjoy it. There's no need to feel guilty about it. So I'm going to give you some key tips on how to identify emotional eating and how to overcome it so it doesn't affect your progress. So the first thing is that actual hunger builds over time. If you notice, when you're genuinely hungry, it starts as, I'm a little bit peckish, I'm a little bit more peckish, I'm hungry, I'm hangry, right? It's not just a sudden craving that comes in an instant. The second way to identify actual hunger is that you want a variety of foods. If you think about it, your body needs various vitamins and minerals. So all things being normal, you will desire a range of different foods. The third point is that when you're actually hungry and you become full, you take that as a sign to stop eating. And the final point is most of the time, you don't feel guilty after eating. If you think back to times you were genuinely starving, you're not going to have guilt afterwards when you consume food because you actually needed it. Now let's go on to emotional eating. So when you are emotional eating, the first thing is that you are going to crave and it's going to come on suddenly. Typically when you've been through a traumatic event or had a stressful day at work, or you're bored. Hopefully I'm not boring you to death. The second thing is that you only tend to crave certain foods. One of the things that are characteristic of emotional eating is that people tend to seek comfort or pick-me-up food. This will typically manifest in the form of carbs and or sugar. The third thing is that you struggle to get full. Now this is what I describe as empty belly syndrome. It feels like no matter how much you eat, you can't seem to satisfy your hunger, or hunger. Like there's a black hole in your stomach. And the final thing is guilt and shame. You know deep down that if it hadn't been for this traumatic event, you wouldn't have smashed that whole 12 pack of Krispy Kremes. I think I'm oversharing now. So we now know how to identify actual hunger from emotional hunger. Now, how do we deal with it when emotional hunger comes up? The first thing I found helpful was to keep a food diary. Throwing it back to year 9, anytime I would binge eat, I would write down what I ate and the time at which it happened. This helped me identify whether there was a trigger around that time and therefore why I was eating what I was eating. It also helped me to identify patterns. Do I eat when certain things or events come up? The second thing is try and limit the amount of poor quality food you have in the house. I still implement this to this day. I find that whenever I have a dip, if there is rubbish food within arm's length, I'm more likely than not going to stuff my face. If I now have to go out for the food, I have to be more intentional and I must really want it. Now, of course, I could end up circling around the whole town looking for my favorite pizza or burger, but this is an extra step. Number 3, find a new stress coping mechanism. Whether that be going for a walk or speaking to someone or removing yourself from a situation, find a way other than food to deal with the problem. Because as we know, once you eat, the problem doesn't go away. The 4th point is to not diet. In my experience as a trainer, diets are one of the main causes of emotional eating. They typically deprive people and leave them feeling very hungry. The final point is to not feel guilty when emotional eating does happen. Conquering emotional eating will look very different for different people. Some people might conquer it in an instant, other people might take months or even years. The important thing is that when it does occur, you view it as a learning curve rather than beat yourself up. Because as we all know, you beat yourself up and it quickly spirals into more emotional eating. If you'd like more help on your nutrition or how to deal with emotional hunger, feel free to click on the link in the description below. If you found this video helpful, drop it a like, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, comment below, let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you again soon.